where we will go onto YouTube and we will grow, because we are here to react on a video that I personally believe will help anyone in a creative situation. So we'll just run it back to the start, and then we'll just have a reaction, and we'll speak about the concepts in this video that define creativity and the cost and the blessing that comes with creativity. And it should scare you and inspire you at the same time. So let's start.
In the world of man, there are some individual characteristics that we all as a collective deeply value and hold high in our esteem. One of those traits that is at the forefront of nearly all advancements in all human societies throughout history is creativity. Creative people have always been responsible for all innovations and leaps in human endeavors, whether it be in the domain of arts, that serves as a catalyst for human beauty in physical form, in our philosophies, which shape the nature of our thoughts and identities, or in technology and the sciences that have uplifted us from the status of hairless chimps to the half-god meat-cooking creature observed to cook meat. And that is for a very simple reason. Chimps are by design extremely dumb, to the point where they can't fathom the concept of using fire to make meat more digestible. And that is exactly why they suck and we're better.
And I want you guys to hear that joke where he just made a joke about chimps and he told you that they suck. We are better. He doesn't say I'm joking at the end of it. However, what you should take from it is that is completely and brutally honest. And it's just the truth that in the ranking of life, the Source's creation has put us above chimps in terms of our consciousness, but not in terms of the value, because every single species provides value to the planet in what we call an ecosystem.
It is then no wonder why we think creativity is the holy grail in terms of value. The thing we omit and forget, though, is that nearly all truly highly creative people will live miserable lives of unending struggle, where they try to make something out of that quote-unquote gift they were given, but never ascend to a level where they are half recognized for it. Creativity.
And here you should notice that he says it in a negative light. It's kind of dark and hopeless. However, you should know that once you get onto the path of creativity, the path of pain is the path that you're supposed to take, because that is the path that will provide the most growth. That is the path that is going to stretch you to a point where you cannot go back to what you were before.
It is also highly correlated with psychosis and many psychological disorders. Just think of the tortured artist concept. It isn't a coincidence that a nice chunk of all creative geniuses suffered from extreme levels of mental illness. So, if we truly consider the cost-benefit ratio in this situation being
mental illness, in terms of what society would classify it as. However, once you begin to look at things from a spiritual lens, it is not mental illness, but it is the Source's creation communicating to you. And the way that it can give you the most impactful message is to cause you despair within your personal world, your personal reality, and force you literally to make a change.
Creative in the real world is either a tiny negligible chance of ascending to the high.
And the only change you can make is to bring that vision that you're willing to suffer for into existence.
Societal achievements in any given field and being nearly worshipped for it, or in a far more likely realistic sense, being rolled by life for decades on end until the creativity is literally beaten out of you. Knowing all this, you might then get pushed to question the strange phenomena that is behind the creative.
And this is what society does to all people. We all come creative innately. We all have a way of doing things. But once you go into the education system, they tell you you can only do it the way that the person who is educating has told you. And that is where creativity starts to die, because you are no more using your mental faculties to create, but you're actually using them to memorize.
The person, which is, what is creativity? The way we usually...
So school is not a negative place. It's not a bad place at all. They teach you so much that you're going to use within your life to collaborate with other people. However, know that when you're in school, your creativity is being capped because you are following a linear path, which is known as a curriculum.
You think about it is heavily tied with a sense of novelty. We associate creativity with originality and deviation from the norm. The thing is that somehow overlaps with our definition of insanity as well. So, we have an implied expectation of those novel thoughts and ideas to somehow make sense, to be useful. There has to be a certain sense of structure and understanding to it, no matter the field, even in art. If you paint something no one has ever seen but no one recognizes the beauty or value of, then you're no longer creative despite the originality of the thing you did create. Which means there is a subjective recognizable value to creativity, and it is shared between human minds, or at least between field-specific creative human minds. It is like a human frequency for creativity. That is what makes movie, painting, and music critics legit in a sense. We trust them to judge the legitimacy of the creative claim of the supposedly creative thing. And somehow they truly reflect that, and by truly, I mean they are right more times than not. As proof, I and most people, I assume, trust the IMDb rating of movies. Using this understanding, creativity can be boiled down to two processes. One, the process of seeing things outside the box. That is why I referred earlier as originality. But the problem is, if you only have originality, or if you have a surplus of originality, you have a heightened ability to be aware of chaos. Creativity is by its nature an enhanced, broader, deeper access to chaos, the formless
and that is where all the pain and suffering comes from, is that you have an awareness to what is actually going on. You have an awareness to the destructive forces as well as the creative forces. And when you have that awareness, you can begin looking at destructive things and figuring out a way to make them creative. Literally converting the energy, transmutation.
Shapeless, the disorganized, limitless set of possibilities with no promise of meaning or reason. The nature of creativity is for its wielder to exist to a certain extent in the realm of chaos, that it bears a certain number of unintended consequences. If you have access to chaos, chaos has also access to you, which is rightfully as scary as it sounds.
And that is where it actually is scary, because you are literally veering into the unknown. And in the unknown, there could be extremely good things, there can be extremely bad things. And because you've put yourself on the front line of experiencing this, you may suffer. At the same time, you will also prosper if you are able to perceive it correctly and in a healthy way that allows you to move forward with your life. A lot of people get stuck at this point, and then they start to become depressed, and they start to see life in a way that things are not fair, they cannot do anything about it, they were born in the wrong time, etc., etc. But now that is your perception working against you. Your perception needs to work for you and let you know that things are the way that they are because that is how they are supposed to be. If you were to really think about it and think about how you could make changes to this world, you're only looking at the positive changes that you can make. But even with the changes that you make, there are going to be negative consequences. And I'll put this down to, let's say, in a place like America where they want to abandon the police, which I think is a valid point, because the police are just human beings like you. The police are just people like you, and they are fighting for whatever they believe in, which could be against another community of people. However, if you now decide to abandon the police, the consequence of that is that as much as marginalized groups will not be targeted and maybe less exposed to the harm that the police gives them. However, a consequence of that is that there's most likely going to be a lot of crime, and that is just what is going to come with it. However, just because there's a negative consequence that's going to come with you making a change does not mean that you should not make that change, because that is how growth happens. Mistakes are going to happen. People are going to make mistakes. Bad things are going to happen. But eventually, you'll come out on the other side. And that is the belief that you should have when you implement these things into your life and into the world.
It makes the creative person able to see far more possibilities than the normal person, but it also makes his identity fragmented. It makes it harder to have a stable, firm identity, to know who he is, because of his relationship with the limitless set of possibilities of existence.
And this is, for me, because you allow the cosmos to run through you, and you stop trying to force things to happen. Therefore, it's hard to have an identity when you're constantly allowing free-flowing thought and energy into your being, because at any moment it can change. Therefore, you're never stagnant in your ideas, but your ideas are constantly evolving, and things that you thought were true now, in a few months, a few years' time, can be completely false. And therefore, you always feel like you don't have an identity. And I find myself doing this. So many times I find myself thinking, who am I? What have I become? Who am I? I don't even know myself anymore. I can't even see myself. I can't even identify with the self that I thought I was. Because now I let every program that is in the world run through me. And because of that, I don't stick to one side. Whereas before, my beliefs were a bit rigid and I thought things were meant to be a certain way. Now, because of spirituality, I see more and I see past 3D world.
Being a conduit for novelty makes who you are by proxy or by nature a very adaptable thing. You have to be shapeless and malleable to access the shapeless realm, and for that realm to also access you, meaning that you cannot just shut it down. It is a part of who you are. Some people have a tiny small window into the chaotic realm, and some others have a giant fucking hole in the wall. And in that instance, you will find people with psychological disorders. That chaos overwhelms them, and they can't make sense of it. As I said earlier, there is two processes to being a creative person. The second process is structuring novelty, giving it shape and form, making it understandable and shareable in physical reality. I'm not sure if you get what I'm trying to get at here. What this means is that creative people don't have the gift of novelty. They instead have a great ability for turning unusually large amounts of chaos into order. Creative people are, in that sense, touched by God in the symbolic meaning of the word. That gift, though, doesn't ensure protection from its side effects, which leads me to think that creativity is not in the benefit of the individual, but the group. Nature has figured out that creativity is highly beneficial for a tribe, and so it creates a few dozen creatives.
And that is just a fact, because as rich as that creative person might become, such as Elon Musk, at the end of the day, the whole population has benefited from PayPal. Same with Jeff Bezos, the whole population has benefited from Amazon. Where I stay, I see Amazon deliveries coming every single day. So people are benefiting because they're able to now buy things without leaving their front doors, without putting themselves in danger to what's out there in the world. At the same time, he has opened an avenue of income for those that deliver and those that deal with the logistics of Amazon. Therefore, creativity benefits everyone.
People, knowing that in all likeliness, only one of them will benefit the tribe by his creativity and be rewarded for it. So the creative individual is a sacrificial pawn for the advancement of the tribe. Nature hasn't figured out how to create a form of pure, useful, case-by-case creativity, which we don't even know if it's possible, since creativity by its nature is an inability to be bound and narrow. So, how can you predict which type of creativity will be useful in any given environment, time, tribe? Well, the answer is, which is a messy but still the only answer you could come up with, you disperse a certain amount of creativity among a given low percentage of individuals of a population, and you hope one of those individuals, through the filter of the genetic randomness that makes them themselves, will actually bring about useful creative work to the world. And yes, in all likeliness, the other creative individuals will be fucked. But that's a small price to pay for the benefit creativity brings on a large scale. And I know this because
it's not personal, and this is just the nature of reality.
I can just probe into my own mind and see this thing manifest. I have always thought and been able to see things I couldn't make sense of, meaning I had more chaos than I could manage. The only way I have a slight fighting chance against my noble thoughts is through writing, but even writing is still hard. I can't get truly to what I think. I can't structure it in the way I want it to. I need to spend a lot of time revising and narrowing down, over and over, in order for what I write to start being organized and make sense. But even the finished product is still far more chaotic than I'd like it to be. If we think about it this way, it makes sense that only a small minority of people are truly creative. The price you pay for novelty is extremely high. It's a high-risk, high-reward trade, and natural selection only makes enough of them to ensure the survival of the tribe, since they are needed at scale. As I've said earlier, they are at the forefront of our species evolving and adapting, but the closer you get to the individual level, the more creativity starts to break down when you consider the cost-benefit ratio. Nature produces just enough of them to ensure the success of a few, which is enough. So, as a bottom line, creative people are sacrificial pawns in the Darwinian game for survival.
And the scary thing is when you're a creative person is to realize that this is your life, mate. Therefore, you have to do whatever it takes. Because if you've watched my previous content, you know all the time I say that things can be extremely bad or extremely good. It might not be terrible, it might not be a tragedy. I can still be grateful because I'm not in a war-torn country. I've managed to run away from poverty. However, because of the way that the mind is wired, to become creative and not to follow orders and to continue with the status quo, you'll be forced to suffer for that because you won't be able to just sit and follow orders that are not innovating and progressing you and the people around you forward.
Now I'm joking. Of course I'm not ending it all that. I mean, I nearly did and changed my mind at the last minute. But the fact is, despite knowing the cynical, cruel nature of creativity, I'm still here, writing and fighting for my nature to be expressed.
And I'm still here trading and making YouTube videos fighting for my nature to be expressed. And I pray that whoever's watching this video is doing the same.
And I'm doing it because it gives me fulfillment. Even if only a few hundred people watch this, I'm still delighted that I get to share whatever this is with you. Just the fact that a few people would truly enjoy this is mind-blowing to me. And yes, I'm doing this in the hopes that at some point I'll have more people watch it, but I wouldn't be able to write and make this content if the end goal was the only thing that mattered. And then I find myself asking, would someone uncreative, undreamy, uneccentric?
And this ties into the desire of this channel. This channel is not a linear channel. This channel will have so many different pieces of content, and reactions is now something that I'm going to be doing from this point on. I'll be reacting to the type of content that I consume on YouTube, and to the type of content that I believe will help you. So you'll find information on this channel about investing, finance, creativity, life, God, females, dating, opposite attraction. Everything will be available on this channel, as long as it is helping us progress and become the best versions of ourselves. Then it is only fair that I provide that to you.
Be able to ever feel this way about their work. The average person wouldn't get ever to feel this type of connection to the universe, existence. Call it whatever you want. Whatever creativity ties our being to is beyond beauty. The average person wouldn't get to have this given meaning in their life. And yes, perhaps they do suffer less, but life isn't about avoiding suffering, but finding something worth to suffer for. So, despite my curse, I feel blessed.
And that brings us to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys have things that you can take away from it, that you can use tomorrow when you wake up, get up in the morning, and transmute these ideas into your being. And eventually they become who you are, and from that point on you don't have to think about it as much, and you automatically are what you say and think you are.